Welcome back. So how about the last period? How much have you learned? I mean, what percentage of the content you're with? Are you with which? What percentage of knowledge are you with it? 80%? Can you get there?
Maybe not so much.
Maybe not so much. What about with all these words here? You can always check it, okay? I'll say it again. Never mind. Relax. Relax. Bless you. Oh, another issue about religions. Actually, we cannot avoid religions completely because there are fixed expressions. For example, for God's sakes. For God's sakes, you have to use that, right? For example, okay, forget it. I don't know. Maybe in the future I can use these words. For God's sake. Although I'm not a Christian. Okay, now let's pick up where we left in the last period. We can always divide all these 8 chapters into 3 parts. 3 parts. What about this one? WTO, this organization. You know what? Your head teacher, Associate Professor Li Juan, the research interest lies, her research interest or research expertise lies in international institutions law or international organization law. For example, the United Nations, right? And the World Bank, the IMF, all these are international organizations. So there is a separate branch of learning. It's called international organization law. So one part would be international organization rules, or we say international institutional rules. Institutional rules, that would be part chapter 3. And the other one would be, for example, like this, dispute settlement mechanism. And in international investment law, you learned the ICSID, right? Yes? Yes. Why can't you use a much simpler one? ICSID. ICSID. Oh, too long. ICSID. Okay. ICSID is also an international organization, right? But it's an organization. We can say it's a justice organization. It can resolve disputes, investment disputes between sovereign states and private investors, right? Yeah, it's a mechanism. All the rules regarding the dispute settlement of investment disputes, these rules and the WTO DSM, dispute settlement rules, we can call them what rules? Yeah. But I'd say sorry, but I can't help. but correct your pronunciation. Again, that word is?
Procedural.
Oh, good. That's correct. Procedural rules, right? Procedural rules. For example, criminal procedure law. You learned that, right? And civil procedural law, also learned, right? What else? Actually, international commercial arbitration is a branch of a procedural law, right? Yeah. And the last one. Actually, these 4 chapters. These 4 chapters, we can call them one thing. And it's the opposite for procedural rules. Yeah. The word is?
Substantial rule.
Substantial is not the correct word. Okay. It's a substantive. Substantive rules. Substantive. Substantial means a large amount of something. But you're not completely wrong, because they share some similar meanings, substantive and substantial. Essential. But here we use this word, okay? Substantive. Substantive rules. Then that would become easy. How many chapters are included into substantive rules? Yeah, the remaining 4 chapters. They are all substantive rules, okay? Good. Maybe next week I will ask you some questions about this division, okay? Okay, then let's move on to section 1, the category of WTO law. Because we don't have all day long, we don't have that much time, I will introduce this part as quickly as I can, and you can always review it after class with the help or assistance of the Chinese translation, okay? Okay, good. And there are 3 points raised by Xi Yuxiang. There are 3 points that he thinks it's difficult to understand, and I will try to explain them to you. Okay. First one you need to know is there are 6 groups of basic rules. 6. In your PPT, it's called 5, right? I changed it into 6. How did I change it? How did the 5 change into 6? Actually, it's here. It put institutional rules and procedural rules together, and I divide them apart. I tear them apart. This one. Institutional rules, procedural rules, I divide them. And the last 4, actually, this paragraph is just a depiction of this table. Yeah? Can you see the 3 words? Okay, good. The most fundamental rules, substantive rules, we can say non-discrimination, because this is the basis on which we establish the World Trade Organization. Without the MFN, the World Trade Organization could and would not exist at all. Why? Because the MFN is a universal principle, right? Universal principle. It can be applied to every member. The rules of non-discrimination can be divided into two. First one is MFN, the other is NT, national treatment. Now I'll give you a short video. A short video to introduce to you the MFN treatment. Oh, why there's no sound?
All right. Thank you. You're welcome. Hi, Keith.
Hi.
For you, it's 5.
5? That's not fair. That's discrimination.
Just kidding.
Let's go to a place where non-discrimination is the norm. To a meeting room at the World Trade Organization.
Discrimination makes people angry. And when you discriminate between trading partners, entire countries can become angry.
That's what the WTO's most favored nation principle is about. It's a fancy way to say, if you give a treat to one trading partner, all other WTO members get the same.
And at the WTO, all of our members are deemed most favored nation.
Imagine you're a small or poor WTO member and you had to negotiate with each and every single trading partner. With the most favored nation principle, you're assured that whatever is offered to the big ones, you get it too.
And without this principle, the world of trade would be a chaotic mess, with millions of new tariff lines encumbering trade everywhere. But where there are rules, there are also exceptions.
One exception concerns poorer countries. WTO members are allowed to grant them special access to their markets without granting the same access to other WTO members.
Or, another exception, countries can negotiate trade agreements in smaller groups, bilaterally or regionally, and the trade is freed up between those partners.
The most important aspect for me is trust. Trust is everything in the world of trade. And the most favored nation principle creates that trust. So Keith, another coffee?
Sounds great. But this time, I'm the most favored customer.
He is a prestigious professor on WTO.
We have a trade quiz for you.
Okay.
They make up a large chunk of global trade, but you don't need...
Now let's go back to this part. How do you like that video? What have you learned through that video? Yes, trust. What else? Yeah, this is the definition. Yes, this is the definition for the MFN. And I would like to invite someone to read this first. And at that time, I will correct some of your pronunciations, maybe. Would you like to have a try? Read, just read here. The MFN, treatment obligation requires.
The MFN treatment obligation requires a WTO member that grants certain favorable treatment to any given country to grant that same favorable treatment to all other WTO members a WTO member is not allowed to discriminate between its trading partners by, for example, giving the products imported from some countries more favorable treatment with respect to market access than the treatment it accords to the like products of other members.
Okay, thank you. Basically, are correct. Her pronunciation is standard. Okay. I'd like to draw your attention to this part: more favorable treatment and market access. What about tariffs? Tariffs is actually a means to safeguard the market access. That means I resist the imports from foreign countries. Market access. The most useful vehicle or tool is tariffs. Market access. And the third point would be like products. For example, if you export a cell phone, a smartphone, no matter it's Redmi or Huawei or it's iPhones, they are like products. What about this one compared to the iPads? Are they like products? I mean, my cell phone and this iPad, or we say tablet computer. I don't think so. I think they are not like products. This is a cell phone, but that's a computer. Two different products. We can always levy different tariff rates, right? Good. Okay. And this sentence is rather important. I suggest you recite this sentence. It will for sure appear on the paper of the final exam. The MFN treatment. Okay. The MFN treatment obligation is arguably the single most important rule in WTO law. Without this rule, the multilateral trading system could and would not exist. Okay, national treatment obligation. Similar to that. But there is a question on this part. Schedule of specific commitments on services. Do you still remember that? I'll give you a brief introduction here. Schedule of specific commitments is this one. This is a schedule of specific commitments. Sector or subsector. This is about medical and dental care, this sector. And restrictions on national treatment. For example, China opens its market on this sector to foreign countries. But there are certain restrictions. That means China made some reservations. I will restrict on foreign medical care. 1, 2, 3, 4. You still remember that? There is one problem you raised that. It's about the 4 modes of supply. Why there are 4 modes of supply? Because there is no definition for service. In the WTO agreements, there is no definition for service. What is service? Serve. For example, I'm a barber. I will make a haircut for you, do a hairstyle for you. This is a kind of service, right? Serve means one person serve the other person. Public servant, what's that? Public officials, public servant, 公务员. Servant, serve the people, to serve the people. But there is no definition for service, and that's why we have 4 modes of supply. The first mode is called what? For example, there is a foreign doctor giving me medical suggestions from America. The doctor is in the US. I am here in China. Both of us are still in 2 separate countries. But that service, I mean the medical advice, is sent, right? And the second mode would be consumption abroad. For example, you go to Japan for a tour, right? You are the recipient of the service because you went to Japan. You go to Japan and accept a service, site tour, site viewing. Yes. The third mode would be commercial presence. Do you remember? For example, there is a foreign hospital was established. There is a foreign hospital established in China to provide medical service. This hospital itself is a presence. It's called a commercial presence. There is an institution, an establishment here in China, right? Commercial presence. And the last one would be presence of natural persons. There is a foreign doctor who come to China to provide the medical service without establish an institution. Just the persons come here. 4 modes. For example, do we have restrictions on national treatment? First one, cross-border supply, none. That means this medical service can cross-border serve, supplied, can be supplied cross-border, right? The second one would be, consumption abroad. That means you go abroad to get your disease cured. Go to see a doctor outside your own country. Go to the United States to cure a cancer, so for example. None. No restriction. You can go. You can go there. You can go to the United States to cure a disease. And the third one, foreign service providers are allowed to enter into joint ventures. That means commercial presence. Does China allow a foreign hospital established in China? Look here. Foreign service providers are allowed to enter into. These are restrictions. This is a market access, whether we let it in or not. What about this one? On national treatment. Once it comes, will we treat the foreign hospital as those Chinese ones? Maybe yes or maybe not. That's something about national treatment. For example, I'll impose heavier taxes or regulations, internal regulations on foreign hospitals. That's possible. National treatment. Okay. The 4 modes. Clear? About the 4 modes. That's a lie. 4 modes. Okay. Now let's come back. Okay. Next one would be market access. Market access relates more to trade barriers. If we have barriers, that means we do not offer market access. Barriers rules. As you can see, it's divided into 4, right? It's important on this page. And other non-tariff barriers I mentioned just now, including TBT, SPS, and intellectual property rights. Do you remember here? Okay, not this part. There's another problem about the third one. C, rules on unfair trade. It's chapter 7. Dumping. The definition of dumping and subsidies. I have not mentioned more. The last part, chapter 8, exceptions, is the rules on the conflict between different values. I told you, national security is one important issue. There will always be conflict between free trade and national security. I mean, trade liberalization and national security. Fentanyl is a pretext for national security. This kind of drug has damaged the national security of the US, and that's why Donald Trump increased the tariffs, right? It's an excuse. All these exceptions are excuses. National security. The last part, institutional and procedural rules. Okay. And section 2 is about the principal source of WTO law. Actually, we've already learned that in the general course. It's about the WTO agreement. Again, what's the full name of the WTO agreement? The full name? The Marrakesh Agreement establishing the World Trade Organization. This is the principal source of WTO law, together with all those annexes. This is the principal source of WTO. What about other sources? Besides the WTO agreement, there are also other sources. But they're not the principal one. They are just the other type, other sources. What's the role of those other sources? They assist in clarifying or defining the law that applies between WTO members on WTO matters. For example, customary international law. The teachings of the most highly publicists. The decisions made by the panels or the appellate body. Okay, A is the WTO agreement. The Marrakesh Agreement is the principal source, and we can call it's a hat, just like a hat. Yes, it's just like a hat. And under the hat, there are, right? One A, one B, one C. Here, 1A. What's the name of 1A? There's no specific name to 1A. Actually, it's divided directly into two parts. And here, GATT 1994 is the head of 1A. Got it? And how many agreements, specific agreements here? Still 12? You are out of date. It's 14? 12, maybe too less. 14, maybe too many. Okay. 13. And what's the most recent one? What's the most recent one? It's called TFA. TFA, Trade Facilitation Agreement. Trade facilitation is something happens on borders. For example, each country has its own customs, right? Customs. When goods or commodity are imported into China, the Chinese customs will impose tariffs on those products. And besides the tariffs, there are a lot of other formalities or procedures for the importers to do. Formalities, procedures, a lot of things, red tapes. It's very burdensome, right? But all those customs, formalities, and procedures, we can call them what? Border measures. Border measures. And the other type of measures is called behind the border measures. Behind the border measures. Again, I'll try to explain these two concepts. I'll give you an example. For example, if you are an importer in China, you import, we say, cell phones, smartphones from a foreign country, from Japan, for example. You are a businessman, an importer here in China. You want to import smartphones from Japan, okay? Then, at the border, you will have to pay the tariffs to the customs, right? You will have to finish a lot of other procedures or formalities with the customs. It's very burdensome, right? But all these measures, we call them border measures, just on the border, right? But once the smartphones are imported in China, into China, it's behind the borders. What measures we will impose? For example, we will levy another internal taxes. Internal taxes on the smartphones. Again, but it's internalized. And you can always impose other burdens on those imported goods. You can always do that. Why? Because this is your country. This is on your turf. It's up to me. I decide everything I can do. I mean the local governments, right? They can do. But they are called behind the border measures. You got it? Behind the border measures. The border measures and the measures behind the border. For example, I impose a 30% of internal tax on the imported smartphones, while I impose 20% of internal tax on those produced in China. Can we say we gave the imported goods national treatment? Again, 30% on smartphones imported from Japan, 20% on the smartphones produced in China. Can we say we have given the imported smartphones national treatment? Of course not. They're not the same, right? You're discriminating against the imported smartphones, 30%. I mean, internal taxes, not the tariff, but the internal taxes, I mean domestic taxes. That's not a national treatment. Clear? That's for goods. And for services, as you can see the table, right? Also, there are restrictions on national treatment services. You can always put more burdens on those imported services, imported goods. That will not be national treatment. That would be a violation of national treatment. Okay. Then let's come to the WTO agreement. I think you're already familiar with this part. I will not introduce it. And this table, right? As you can see it, 13 specific agreements. And of all these agreements, the most important one would be GATT 1994, because WTO was established on January the 1st, 1995. Just to have a browse of it after class, okay? Maybe I need a flipper. Okay, I think that would be everything for today's introduction. And we will leave the remaining part till next week. Okay. Do you have any questions? I'm ready for your questions. Okay, if you do not have questions, I have one question for that young boy. And you recently participated in IELTS examination. What about the spoken English part? And my question would be, what questions did the examiner ask you?
The examiner asked me, in part one, asked whether I'm work or study, and what's my major, and in the morning you do something, or in evening you do something. And in part two, he asked me,
She or he?
he asked me a topic about in public place, what things you lost.
If you lost something in a public place?
Yeah, and
What's the question?
you need to have a speech for about 2 minutes
2 minutes.
for this topic, and in part three, the teacher will ask you some questions about
Based on what you've talked about in part 1 and part 2, am I correct? Good. Okay, that's an interesting topic. maybe you can also prepare for this topic, okay? Lost something in public places, it sounds unreasonable to me. I don't know what to prepare. Maybe after class, I can talk to you more about that topic, okay? So if there's nothing more, then I think this will be the end of today's class, and you are hereby excused. Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye, teacher. Goodbye.